Hold on, hold on, my dear ones, here comes the dawn. Hold on, hold on, my dear ones, here comes the dawn. Friends, written by Heidi Wilson. This is just one of the songs that Minnesota protectors, note, many do not call themselves protesters, but protectors, protecting their neighbors, protecting their values, protecting the Constitution. This is one of the songs they are singing to their neighbors in the streets. Hold on, they say. Hold on, dear ones. Can you sense it? Do you see it? Here comes the dawn. When I first came upon stories of the singing that is happening in the streets of Minneapolis in the year that the week since Alex Preddy's death has been, I thought to myself, of course, Minnesota of the many college choirs, of the many Lutherans schooled in four-part harmonies. Of course, Minnesota has taken up the long tradition of protest songs, equipping people with a soundtrack and a heartbeat to unify and encourage them in their work of solidarity and love. If you have ever sung with a choir or even in a congregation, you know something about how making music together turns a group of individuals into an organism that lives and moves and breathes together. Last week, Pastor Paul talked about the need for both prophetic and poetic imagination in times like these. In the year that has passed, in the last week, I have been struck by some of the breathless commentary and conspiracy theories of those who wonder who is bankrolling the movement work in Minnesota because it is too organized to be powered by volunteers. It seems they cannot conceive of selfless action motivated by love of neighbor. Do not understand people running toward threat to render aid. Have no imagination for motivation outside money. People of God, how impoverished have our moral imaginations become if we think the only thing that would get a human to care for their neighbor is money. It is into this moment that we are living through, that the words of Micah and Matthew echo, like poems or protest songs, a heartbeat to remind us what good is, a soundtrack to encourage us and keep us going in a Godward direction, an earworm to sing in our quiet moments so we don't forget what we value and what is at stake. Listen here, mortal, Micah says. God has already made it abundantly clear what good is and what God needs from you. Simply do justice, love kindness, and humbly walk with your God. Jesus picks up the theme in the Sermon on the Mount. Let's revisit those blessings about what good is. Let them sink into our souls. It is the poor Jesus blesses, not the rich, not those who can buy their own safety, but the poor. The kingdom of heaven is theirs. It is the grieving Jesus blesses. It is a blessed thing to be brokenhearted and to have tears streaming down and to be grieving, Jesus says, not to be numbed out or avoidant, not to protect our hearts with unperturbed illusions, but it is the mourning. In their grief, they will be consoled. It is the gentle Jesus blesses, not the imperial saber rattlers, not the ones who have resurrected the shame of manifest destiny and the logic of the playground bully, but the gentle. They will inherit the land. It is the ones who hunger and thirst for justice Jesus blesses, not the ones who prefer order at the expense of all else, but the ones who hunger and thirst for justice. They will have their fill. It is the ones who show mercy Jesus blesses. Mercy, mercy, mercy. Not the ones who relish cruelty. The ones who show mercy will be shown mercy. It is the ones whose hearts are clean Jesus blesses, not the ones whose hearts carry the unrepentant stains of dehumanizing thought and word and deed, but those whose hearts are clean. It is only when our hearts are clean that we will see God. It is the ones who work for peace Jesus blesses, not the ones who think peace is the absence of war, or those who believe all would be well if people would just comply, but those who work for peace. They will be called children of God. It is those who are persecuted because of their struggle for justice Jesus blesses. Not those who keep their heads down, but those who are persecuted because of their struggle for justice. The kingdom of heaven is theirs. Friends, I will tell you true. I have loved the Beatitudes for a long time, but it has taken a long time for those last verses especially to kind of sink into my soul. What is all that talk of persecution about? But I am feeling it from my folks, my family and friends in Minnesota in these bitter days. You are fortunate when others insult you and persecute you and utter every kind of slander against you because of me. What? Must mean you're on a path walking in the way of Jesus, because they persecuted the prophets before you in the very same way. I hope the 70-year-old grandmothers observing ICE are heartened by this. I hope the children in detention camps shouting "Liberación" are heartened by this. And the small business owners who have gone to a pay-what-you-can model so that everyone can eat. And the people who are worried about paying rent because they can't leave home to work. And the people of color walking around with passports, hoping they will have enough time to show them. And even folks like my niece and nephew, middle and high schoolers at suburban schools outside Minneapolis, who have had much anticipated musical performances, an all-state performance at Orchestra Hall, and one of the only middle school bands ever selected to play for the Minnesota Music Educators Association. They've had those performances canceled to keep everyone safe. I hope all of these people, in all of those different circumstances, feel the prayers and the love and the truth that walking in the way of Jesus brings blessing and peace, even when they are in the face of persecution. And friends, there is another song that they are singing in Minnesota, written by the peace poets, that those words of Jesus, "Rejoice and be glad when others insult you and persecute you," seem to hearken back to. It goes like this. And I'll sing it a time, and if you feel so called, I invite you to join with me because it's pretty simple. It goes like this. I am not afraid. I am not afraid. I will live for liberation, 'cause I know why I was made. Will you sing it with me? Maybe we'll start by, do you want to sing it back all the way entire, or should we sing line by line? Line by line, okay. I'll sing a line and you sing it back. I am not afraid. I am not afraid. I am not afraid. I am not afraid. I will live for liberation, 'cause I know why I was made. I will live for liberation, 'cause I know why I was made. All together. I am not afraid. I am not afraid. I will live for liberation, 'cause I know why I was made. One more time. I am not afraid. I am not afraid. I will live for liberation, 'cause I know why I was made. Thank you for singing that with me. Friends, people sing it not because they don't have fear, not because things aren't terrifying, but to take heart, to remind themselves of who and whose they are, their purpose and their goal. Friends, I will be real. I have cried a lot of ugly tears in the last week as reports come in of ICE activity getting closer and closer to my hometown. But I am also heartened by the creative, joyful, and imaginative visions of resistance that Minnesota is gifting the world. Creative sledding competitions, singing and making music in the streets, signal groups dedicated to getting children safely to school and back home again, church groups assembling supply kits for observers and protectors that include gas masks, homemade phone or recording pouches, street medic kits, and hand and toe warmers. These are the seeds of the future we can dream and build together. A future that leans into what is good, a future that leans into what good is, that leans into what is blessed, keeping families together, keeping people fed, showing mercy and gentleness, caring for people's health, seeing each other as we are all made in dignity in the image of God. This is what good is, my friends. And there are a lot of different paths to get there. Not all require being on the streets, but all require tender hearts, steely spines, loads of imagination, and songs that help us remember who and whose we are. I think Minnesota is putting into action the hard-won community and neighbor networks that are some of the good God did with the evil that was the killing of George Floyd. We are trying to learn from them and build our own versions that make sense here at home in Iowa. If you are interested in the training that is happening later this week on February 5th, let me know and I'll get you more information. But for now, hold on, hold on, my dear ones, here comes the dawn. Sing it with me. Hold on, hold on, my dear ones, here comes the dawn again. Hold on, hold on, my dear ones, here comes the dawn. May it be so. Amen.